Okay. Yeah. So let's start. So let's understand what is a one-tier architecture. Okay. So one-tier architecture is simple. It is the most basic architecture what we can have. Here we only have one server. Okay. That's why it is called a one-tier architecture. And generally that server is the file server in a one-tier architecture. So the server, generally this type of architecture you will see in a system where you handle files and all, some file uploads and download and all. So those systems you will find this one-tier architecture. Now if I go to the two-tier, again two-tier you will have one more layer server. Let's say I have one web server and one database server. So in that way I have two. So no need to see one and two because they are not that common. So that's why we will see directly what is a three-tier architecture. Okay, which is the most common one and we need to know. So if you see the three-tier architecture, okay, first of all we have the browser. Let's say this is the browser. Okay, so browser is nothing but from where you are browsing the internet now. So that browser is this. Okay, then once after the browser there is one more layer which we call the web server. Then there is one more layer called the application server or the app server. Then we have one more layer called the database server. So there are four components: 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Now let's understand these four components in little detail. Okay. Now this browser is nothing but we call it the client. Okay. And these three we call the server. These three together, okay, we call the server, and this one is called the client. So client server. So you would have heard this terminology, right? Some processes are happening in the client side, some processes are happening on the server side. Okay. So generally what it means is like client side processes are nothing but our browser is doing those processes. Okay. Generally like our browser is doing the process, or server side process is nothing but the operations or some logical operations which our server is doing, which our side, the main server side, it's happening. So let's understand this in little detail. Okay. So first let's see the yeah. So first let's see what is the each component in detail. First let's see the client side. Now what I do is I just draw that diagram in a very simple form. Okay, this is my browser and this is my server. So server, there are three parts in the server. So for now all those three are inside this. Okay, I'm just assuming that. And browser is the place, like let's say it is my Google Chrome, okay, whatever, or the mobile app. All those will come in this. Okay, not only browser, it can be the client, we call it. Now when I send some request, okay, we call it like when I'm asking the server something, okay, like to give me something, it's called a request. So now let's say I am opening this Isha Training Solutions.org. Okay, so when I just type this Isha Training.org and I press enter, so I have requested my server to give that domain data. Okay, so what will happen as soon as I enter this? If I show you the content here, if you see this, if you inspect the element here, the network, so just see here. Okay, I'm just going to that website. If you see here, see, there is one request being hit. Okay, so this we are sending some request to the server. Okay, so that server will send me back the response. So that's why we call this request, and whatever server is giving us back is called the response. So these are the request and response. So I am entering the Isha Training Solutions.org, right? And I'm writing it, and I'm pressing enter. So a request will now go to the server, okay? And at the same time, server will accept the request and send me a response. And that response will be printed in front of you. That's what you are seeing here, okay? So this is all happening in very little time, okay? If you see the time also here, how much time it is taking, okay? See, it is around 14-16 seconds. Totally everything is done. But if you see, the connection has happened in just 2 seconds. Okay, in 2 seconds, most of the things have been completed. Like the server has started giving the response. So that's why this is called a request. Okay, whatever we are sending to the server is called a request, and whatever we are getting back is called the response. Now, now let's understand what is a request and what is a response in little detail. Okay, so in every request, okay, if you see the request, it will have some sub components. Okay, so if you see this request here, which we are hitting, this one, so let me show you that. So see, if you see the request, see, request has some parameters there. One is the request URL, right? You can see the request URL. So request URL is nothing but it will contain all the server name. Okay, it will have the server name, the path, the protocol, those details. Now let's see, let's compare it with our this example. Okay, so let me open the some link here. Okay, I'm just opening this. Just right click, click on inspect element. Okay, just click on inspect if anyone is not aware. So, and click on network. Now here I will press enter. I am reloading it generally. Now if I go to this request here, right, just I will minimize this. So in general, you can see request URL here. Okay, so if you see this URL, what you are seeing at the starting, this HTTP, is called the protocol. We call it the protocol. So in our example, what is the protocol? It is HTTP. Is there any other protocol which you have seen other than HTTP? Anyone?
HTTPS.
Correct. See, now if I go to Amazon.com, I again open the inspect element. I go to the network. You see here. See, here we have the HTTPS. So what is this S adding? It's an SSL certificate we call. Basically, which all websites have this SSL certificate? They have this HTTPS. Generally, it is called a secured encrypted website. Okay? But if you don't have SSL certificate, it's called HTTP. It's a normal website. Like lot of encryption is not there. Okay, an SSL layer is missing, we can say. If somebody not, not speaking, can you go on mute? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that is a protocol. So protocol can be of two types. So let me make it a little smaller. So I have a request, and request can be further divided into request URL, request URL will have First, it will have a protocol. So what all protocols are there?
HTTP and HTTPS.
Yes, correct. So these two general protocols are there. Are many other protocols based on what you're. So here, what we are seeing is a web service. Okay, that's why we have HTTP and HTTPS. Now there is database service. There is a mobile application service. So there are different protocols for each. Now there are FTP service, right? So for file transfer protocol we call. So there are different protocols. Now this is an HTTP HTTPS protocol, which is a web service, or in even in the mobile applications you will see the same protocol most of the time. Okay, yeah, so that's about the protocol. Now the other thing what request URL will have is the host. Now let's see what is the host. We can say host, or even we can say the server name. These things are same. Okay, no need to confuse. If someone says server name, that is also same, host or server name. So now in our example, see whatever you're seeing after this HTTP, no, this www.ishatrainingsolutions.org till that .org, .com, or till that point, okay, it is called the host. So host is nothing but anything with some .com or .org, right? Some x.com, some y.org. That is nothing but the server or host name. Then after the server or host name, we have one more parameter called the path. So what is the path here? Path is nothing but whatever is there after this .org, events, this total, everything. Okay, after that is called the path. So path is nothing but whatever we have after the host. That is path. So is that clear? Like what is protocol, what is host name, and what is path for everyone? Like how to identify a path, how to identify the host name, and how to identify a protocol from the URL.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah. Then we have something called a request method. This is very important. Okay. Request. So one we saw what is there in the request. We have the request URL. Now next what we have is the request method. Okay. Now request method, there are different types of request methods like get, post, put, then maybe delete. So there are different types of request methods. So request methods are nothing but see, now you are sending a request. Okay, so wherever you are asking the server something like send me something, okay, mostly generally it is a get method. And whenever you are asking you are posting something like you have a form, okay, you are submitting something, or you are logging in, so you are sending the username, password, and all, right? So that time it will be a post method. Okay, so let me quickly show you one example of post. So this is one sample website. Okay, generally people use it for testing purpose. Now, if I go to the forms here, okay, there is something called a form. So if I open that HTML form here, this is one sample test website. Okay, just I want to show you how a post request will look like. So I will enter some customer name, some telephone, some email address. I will use some random things, some delivery time, something delivery instructions, And then if you see here, okay, just observe it. I submit my order. Okay. Now here, see, there is nothing. Okay. If you see the headers, it is a get request. Okay. Now I submit my order. Now see, I have submitted my request. Now if I go to the request here, what is the request now? Everyone able to see what is the request now?
Post.
Correct. So when I submitted a request, a form, okay, and it has become a post request. Now if I see the payload here, see what are those details now here?
The details
Whatever
that you
entered
enter.
in.
Correct. So what all I entered have been printed here. Okay. That means the server has received all the data and the server has stored it in its database. That's called a post method. So in get method, do we get anything back? We are getting the response, right, from the server. Now, what is the response? So response is nothing but, see, no need to be like, see, what is the response? Like if I have something and if I enter, if there is no response, nothing will come here. These everything, all these are response, correct? Right?
Yes.
Correct. So that is the response. Now this HTML code, whatever you're getting here, is the response. What you're getting from the server. This all this HTML code is being stored in the server. So when I entered Amazon.com, first what it will do, it will go to the domain registrar, whichever the domain registrar will be. It will track the IP because every domain will have one IP. If I show you, okay, there's one website called Find the IP. Okay, if anyone has used it, everyone is aware about the domain and all. Like what is a domain? Anyone not aware of what is a domain?
The host name that you said is basically domain, like domain
Yeah.
name
So see,
of that
if I
particular website.
just go to this, yeah. So if I go to the request lookup, if I enter Amazon.com, see what you seeing this, what you are seeing.
ఇంకొక అరగంట అయిపోతుంది 7:35 అయిందిగా ఇంకొంచెం అయిపోతుంది 25 minutes లో అయిపోతుంది.
Everyone, are you able to see what is the IP address of Amazon.com?
Yes, Vishnu.
Yeah. So that's what. So will you be able to easily remember this one or Amazon.com? To remember.
Obviously Amazon.com.
Yeah, so that's why we have this domains. Okay, domains are nothing but they are one. It's every domain is being like it's like an address. Okay, like remembering an address is easy than some pin code or something, right? In that way. So this IP address is remembering is not that easy. So we give a name to that IP address, which is the Amazon.com. Okay, so when you type this, what will happen is our network will send a request to track the IP. Once you get the IP address, it can go to that server. So every server has the IP address. Now that server, what it will do is it will send the response for whatever request we have asked. Okay, I'm asking, okay, send me this. So the website will be like it will send back the response. That's how the whole process is happening, which is happening in a very small time. Okay, in very milliseconds or seconds. So that is what is a response. Okay, is the request response clear for everyone? What is the request and response? Vignesh,
Yes, Vishnu.
right? Yeah. So and in request and response, both we have some parts like header, body. If you see the again, if I show you the request here, This is very
So as
important
soon
tool
as
for it.
we,
Yeah, go ahead.
as soon as once we enter the URL, like that part is like it will identify the. I understand like it will identify the server based on the IP address.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
so that alone,
So,
like, can you repeat it?
okay. See what happens now. You are entering some website name. Okay, I'm entering
Yes.
Amazon.com. Now, what my server will do is it will send to the network. First, it will go to the domain DNS registrar, we call. Okay, so there are different DNS registrar. You would have heard no GoDaddy and all. You would have heard these advertisements, GoDaddy or Cloudflare or people who are even Google. There are different domain registrars. Okay, so they are the people who allocate these names. Because see, I
Okay.
choose Amazon.com, you choose Amazon.com. So whose is Amazon.com? Someone, there should be one central repository, no?
Yes.
So that central repository is handled by the DNS registrar.
Okay.
Okay, so first it will go to the DNS registrar. Then that DNS registrar will give me an IP address. So that DNS registrar has this IP address stored with him. Okay, for Amazon.com, this is the IP address. He knows that. Okay. Now from IP address, my network can find out where the server is sitting. Okay, it's in US or it's in London or it's where it is sitting. Even if my computer, okay, if I see, if I type find my IP, okay, everyone has a IP address, so connected to the internet. See, right?
Yes.
Similarly, this IP address. Now from IP address, I can find out where my server is. So it will go to the server. Now what will happen? I have requested something from the server, right? So server will give me a response. So here I have request, is the request, and I get the response. So whatever response I get, that will be printed on the page, whatever the Google page or whatever we are entering. Now see, now when I entered Amazon.com, all this is coming from the response, whatever it is getting from the server.
Yes.
Is it clear now, everyone? What is a request and response?
Vishnu, one question, like domain name always will be static, right? It will not change.
Static instance, Shashi, like what you meant, what you are like, what's the
For
confusion there?
example,
Like,
uh, Amazon.com, so it will always will be the domain will be the constant, means it will not change, right? For example, if you want to change, like for example, path will be the dynamic, I think, like late path can be changed, but the domain
correct.
should be is a constant. So that is what I
Yes.
confuse. It will always
Now,
static, right?
correct. I get your question. So see, Amazon.com is a host name. Okay, it is their identity. It will not change, and it is very important thing also. If you see, if you try to think, like if someone buys Amazon.com, okay, think about their business. What will happen, right? So that Amazon.com is very important thing. It will not change. Now, after
Okay.
that, whatever is coming, the path, it will change with respect to whatever they want to do. Okay, the page or whatever. But the Amazon.com will remain same. Now, for India, it will be different. Okay, like they can redirect. Like when someone enters Amazon.com, if you are from India, it will go to Amazon.in. Right now, for India, Amazon.in will be constant. It will not change.
Okay. Yeah.
Similarly, so yeah, what you said is correct. It will be constant. That host name will not change.
Okay. Yeah.
But there is one thing, when I say the host name won't change. Now see, sometime what will happen now, this is what link. Okay. But there could be some external links also, right? External links, like let's say they have put some social media here, maybe something is there. So if they put some Facebook link here, it will go to Facebook, right? Getting my point? If I click like if there is some Facebook or something which they have put here, so if I click on that, it will become some facebook.com/something. But that doesn't mean like host name changed. There the total website has changed.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Correct? Yeah. So that's it. So any doubts, anyone, regarding what is request and what is response?
Clear, Vishnu.
Yeah. So now let me open this. Okay. So if I see here, see again request URL I have. So we have the protocol, we have the host name, okay, we have the path, then we have the request method, which is get now here. The status code, basically status code is nothing but whether our request was successful or not. It will give that that idea to us or to the server or browser. Okay. So if you have a 200, that means our request was successful. We got the response properly. Okay. That is the thing. Then we have something called very important request headers. Okay. Now what are these request headers is, see this everything is a request header. Now request headers will have the information about the request. Okay. So whatever request we are sending, no? Now what is that request? So what is the type of request? Like let's see here. They have given the authority, the method, okay, then the path, the schema, they say scheme, then accept. So what they're saying is accept this type of request, like HTML or application. So this then accept the encoding like gzip or dflat br. So if anything other than this encoding goes, it will not accept. The server will not accept. It will throw error. That's what this header is doing. Okay. So request headers are saying the server what type of request is going. Okay. Now there is something called a payload or the body we say. Okay. Now body will come only for the post request. Body won't come for the get request. Okay. So if you see here, there is nothing preview. See preview. There is nothing called what to say, a payload. Okay. But here you will get a payload. So let's see what is a payload. Okay. Now again I have to enter maybe. See now if you see there are header section, there is something called a payload now. Everyone able to see? For a post request, there is something called a payload. Now if you see the get request here, okay, if you see the get request here, there is no payload here. Able to see?
Yes, Vishnu.
Correct? So if I go here, now the post, if I see the payload, I have the details which I have. So this is called the body. Okay, so the request body or the response body, whatever it is. So if you see a request or response, it has main two components. One is a request header, request body, and request URL. Okay. Even similarly, response also, it has a response header, response URL, and response body. Okay. Now let me open the JMeter. Okay. Yeah. So let me open JMeter. I'll quickly show you why this is important. Whatever I spoke is important for JMeter. Okay. Even anything like when you're doing testing, you need to know this. So here, if I open some simple test plan which I already have. Okay. I open that. I'll explain you all this, how to create and what are these options and all those, but just to quickly show you what it is. So now this is one website, okay. If you see this request, which is an HTTP request. So here there are different things which you need to enter. What is this? What is this part like?
Protocol.
Correct. What is the server name?
The .com or .org what will be.
Correct. And port number automatically, generally it is 443 only. It's called that. It's called a port where we have the access. So no need to change that. Okay, for now I will like don't need to know like what is that much. It's not important. But for now you just say it is 443 which we use for the traffic. Okay. Then HTTPS request, right? What type of request it is? So if you see here, there are multiple requests: get, post, head, put, options, trace, delete, patch, prop point. There are a lot of requests, okay, but the most common one are get and post. Then we have the path. Okay, so that's why this is important to understand what is a request URL, what are the server name, what is a protocol, because you need to script that inside JMeter, right? So for that you need to know what are these things. Then we have the body, right? You can enter the body here, which is the request body. Now, where are the headers, right? So header you will find here. See, these are the request headers. We have the name and the value. So if, in a nutshell, for any request or response, first, what is there? Request URL, right? Second, anyone? What we have?
Method.
Okay, request method. Third, what we have?
Status code.
Request header.
Request header. Then what we have? We have the request body, right? If it's a post request or where we are sending some data to the server, okay, we have a body. Otherwise, the body will be empty. Okay, there won't be anything. So this four will constitute a request or a response. So whenever you want to create any script or you want to model a thing, you need to know what is a request and what are the parts, all these parts in the request. Then only you can create a script or you can hit that request, okay, properly. If even a request header is missing, or even the path is not proper or the body is not proper, your request will not pass. It will fail because your server will think, okay, it is not coming from a valid source. It is some hacker or someone who is trying to access my website. So it will throw the error. So that's why these things all you need to properly understand and you need to insert it in JMeter properly. We will see this all when we go to scripting stage, but I just wanted to show you to get a feel, okay, what it is. Yeah, now let's go back. Now let's say I have a client now, client, which is the browser. Okay, I have the server. So I have a request, I have a response. Now let's say this is one browser, okay. I have some multiple browsers. So what I mean by multiple browsers is like, let's say I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So B4, B3, B2, B1. So I have 4 browsers. Okay, so everyone is sending request. Right, everyone is sending request, and it's getting the response also. Now my question is, see, we have 4 browsers, okay, like 4 clients we can say, but will we have 4 servers? Then do we need 4 servers?
No.
No, correct. So server will be only one. Okay, so all these requests will be handled by the same server. Okay, now let's say, okay, there are 4 requests now going on. Okay, now what I do is, what I'm assuming is, now this request every 1 second, okay, 4 requests are going to the server. Okay, so every 1 second, like after 1 second 4 requests, 1 second 4 requests, 1 second 4 requests. So like that, every 1 second 4 requests are going to the server. So so how many requests are going per second? How many are going per second?
4. 4.
First person.
4, correct. So 4 requests per second, and what this request per second is called the throughput. In performance testing, we call this as the throughput. So throughput can be anything. Okay, like sometimes it is request per second, or it can be request per minute also. Some organizations, they try to say throughput in terms of minute, like how many requests are going in 1 minute. That is also a throughput. Okay, we call it throughput. So throughput is nothing but how many requests are going in a second or in a minute. So with throughput, can I find out how many requests went to the server in an hour? Can I? Like, let's say 4
Yes, we
requests per
can.
Yes.
4 requests per second is there, and I am running my test for, let's say, 1.5 hours. Okay, so how many requests I have hit in that 1.5 hours? So 1.5, right? So I have this in 1 hour. How many seconds are there? Around 3,600 seconds are there,
360.
and into 4, right? Correct. So this many requests per hour. Okay, so that's how you find out how many requests you send in an hour. Now my question to you all is, now there are 4 requests going on. Okay, what if only 3 are passing and 1 is failing? So how many requests per second I should take? Passing and failing in sense, I am not getting response for 1 request, okay, due to some request issue or some browser issue. Okay, I'm getting response for only these 3 requests. 1 request I'm not getting. So what is the request per second?
3.
Correct. So 3 requests per second. So whenever we say throughput, one thing you need to know, very important. Okay, throughput is for only past transactions, past requests, we can say. So whichever requests have passed, okay, we count only that in the throughput, because only those requests are the one which add the load in the server. Okay, the ones which failed doesn't contribute anything because they are failed ones. Okay, and also most of the time the failures are very low. Okay, I meant, if you consider like in performance, we never look for the error scenarios. We always see for that, we will speak about later on. No need to confuse now. So this you need to remember. So throughput is always calculated with the past transactions. Okay, getting my point, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, now what is the, now let's say I have a request. Okay, I am sending a request to the server. Now let's say there are 2 requests going. Okay, let's say I have some scenario, I have some flow. Okay, so I am logging in, let's say. Okay, I'm logging in. So login is there. Okay, so I send a login request. Okay, my server is there. Now my server, what it will do is, again it will speak, let's say that's one more layer, okay, which it is speaking to. There it will send 2 requests. This one request is splitted into 2 here, and I get a response, okay. So I get a response, right? Now in this case, 1 request or 2 requests. So here, for 1 request, there are 2 requests happening on the server side. Okay, so it is not 1 request, it is 2 requests, right? So, but for us, it is only 1 request, but we don't call this as a request. In this case, we call this as a transaction. So, more than 1 request if you hit, okay, it is called a transaction. Getting it? So, if in one flow you have more than 1 request, 2 requests, 3 requests together, okay, it is called a transaction. And for that we say, so when it is transaction, it becomes transactions per second, right? Throughput. Now, what is transactions per second? We say TPS. So in performance, we say TPS. Generally, we don't say request per second. We always say transactions per second. So login, how many logins per second? That's the transaction. Login is the transaction step, right? Transaction is login in our example. Getting my point? What is the difference between a transaction and a request?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Vishnu.
This is very important. If someone asks you what is a TPS, you no need to confuse. Okay, like oh, I don't know what is TPS. So TPS is transactions per second, which will be equal to request per second if request and transactions are same count. If request is equal to 1, then TPS and RPS will be same. But if requests are more in that one transaction, then things will be different. The TPS you need to multiply with that much number of requests to get requests per second. Okay. Yeah. So now, last thing. Now let's say I have a graph. Okay. So this is the throughput. So let's say TPS. Okay, and this is the time I'm running the test. Okay. So now I have one application. I'm testing it. The TPS looks like this. Okay. This is, let's say, 5 TPS and this is 1 TPS. So that TPS is fluctuating with respect to time. And there is another application. This is A1, let's say. There is one more application, which is A2. The TPS is 3. Now, out of these two, which is more stable, you think, the application?
3.
A2.
A2, correct. So that is what is the importance of the throughput. Okay. So with the throughput, you can find how stable the system is. So lesser these fluctuations, higher the stability. And this is very ideal case. Okay, this green color thing, this green color line, straight line is very ideal. You will never get an application with that straight. You will always get an application, but this graph length, the fluctuation should be very low. Okay, it should not be very high. It should be 10% in the range. Like if 3 is the median, it should go 3.3 to 2.7, 2.7 to 3.3. It can fluctuate, not more than that. Getting my point, everyone? So how do you find out if the system is stable or not from the throughput?
Transaction per second.
So throughput graph steady, right?
Vishnu, just one question. Like, if you set throughput as 3, okay, but when you start this performance testing, so we can see that throughput is getting increased for 3 to 6. In that case, whether the application like is doing well, right?
So throughput is increasing, like continuously increasing, you're saying, with time?
Yeah.
Users you're keeping constant. Like let's say I am testing it with 50 users, okay? and
Okay.
I am just running it with 50 user continuously. Okay, so users are not increasing. Okay, it is the same, and also the request per second is not should not change. But if request per second is increasing, then it can't generally it can't happen. Okay, it will come to steady at some point, or it will come down high, down high, down high, like that, because
Okay.
constantly it will not increase, right? Because user is same.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay.
Getting my
Okay.
point?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Correct. Yeah. So that's how you understand the stability of the system. Vignesh, any query?
Uh,
Vignesh, please speak.
Sorry, I was on mute. So
Yeah.
you were telling like one transaction it can contain n number of requests, which you are telling like PNG, GIF, and all those requests. So like that
Yeah.
segregation will be right. So one because as an end user, I'll be knowing only I just click the I'm just entering the URL. That's all I know, and I'm receiving the response. Where exactly like we are getting like it is getting divided as four, I mean multiple requests in the
So yeah,
transaction.
that's a good question. First of all, we never speak in requests. Okay, we always speak in transactions. That is
Yes.
one thing. Okay, so we never say request per second. Generally, it is transactions per second only, always. Okay, so there is no counting required of how many requests are happening in the back, right? Because we say logins. So we say how many logins per second. So that is login transaction. Or let's say logout. So how many logouts per second? So logout transaction. So in login, how many requests are happening? We never count. There's no required, because in performance
Yes.
we always say transaction. Okay, but if you want to know how many requests are going, you need to know the architecture, the flow, how it is happening.
Okay.
The backend architecture, no, because it will not change. The number of requests which will happen in the backend will always be same based on the architecture what you have.
Okay, because first the request will be sent to the web server only, right? So
Yes, correct. See, what I meant to say is, if you have one request, and if one transaction, let's say, okay, and it is getting split to two requests, okay, this will
yes.
be always same. It will not change. It will never split to three requests suddenly.
Yes.
Okay, so we know from the architecture that it is two requests. So if anytime you want to know how many requests are being hit in the backend, you can always look for the architecture diagram.
Okay.
And anyways, we will not always speak about request. We'll always speak about transactions. So again, the number of that request is not required. Getting?
Yes.
Yeah. And we will see some scenarios where we combine the requests also. Like let's say there is some login happening. Okay. Then as soon after login, logout is happening. This together we can consider as one transaction. A very hypothetical situation I'm saying. Okay. My client says this is one transaction. But request wise, this is one request, this is two requests, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how the transaction works. So transaction is nothing but some activity or some action which is happening. Here login and logout are happening, but we are putting it inside one transaction. Okay. So that you will come to know as we progress. Okay. What is this transaction? What is and in when you model when you model it in the workload model diagram, no, that time things will be more clear. So anyone, any query till now? What is request? What is response? What is a throughput? What is a transaction? Because we are now will be entering soon into the tool. Only the workload model will be there. One more session in the performance test planning. Okay. Then we will enter the tool and we will understand the use cases, test cases, how we develop a flow, how we record the script. Okay. Generally, how is it done? Those things we will see. and how we run the test. Like let's say this is my request, okay? So how do we run? So I'm just clicking here. So see, the test is running now. Now here I have set only one user, 3 users, okay? So the test is running with 3 users, and it is hitting this request. It is hitting this. The request is this one. So if I open that, see, it is hitting the application, right? Is a get request. It is opening this URL, and the response data we are getting, right? If you see it little like a browser, okay, I'll show you. See, it is the response which we are getting. So we will study all this, okay? How we created this script, how we are running it, how we are stopping it, what are these parameters, thread group, and all. You will be seeing everything, and how does the result looks like. Even if I show you some, if I add some listener and just quickly show you, if I add some. See, now I can see how many requests are being hit. Now 26 requests I have hit, okay, and the average I can see the response time now. So it is taking around 420 milliseconds. Okay, 420 milliseconds average it is the response time. Throughput, if you see what is this throughput we saw? It's in seconds per seconds, right?
Request per second.
7.4 requests per second.
Yes, 7.4 per second. Now this, what you are seeing here is the average, okay? The fluctuation you are not able to see. So to see the fluctuation, what you need to do, you need to plot a graph, right? Correct? So that we can do plotting the graph. Generally, we don't do that inside JMeter. We will be using some other tool like AppDynamics, okay, or some other tool which can provide that graph. But we can also do it inside JMeter. Generally, it is not recommended. But so if I show you how it is. So if I print only the throughput, okay, I'm just printing only the throughput. See how the throughput is looking. Little small, but are you able to see?
Yes, yes.
Yes, it's visible.
So this is almost steady, right? Like the fluctuation is very not high. Like okay, like it is like just going okay, little, but it is almost steady. So this application is stable now with 3 users. But if I increase the users, like let's say I do it with 10 users, okay, I'll explain you all this how I'm doing and all, but just for you people get that that feel, okay, what is happening. For that I'm running it for 10 users. Let's say I'm running, okay, so let's see how does it look. Now if you see throughput increased, right? Are you able to see throughput increased?
Yes, yes.
Correct. Now if you see the graph, see it is going. Let's see how the stability is, like is it like before, or if there is any change, there's a dip or something. Let's see that. So with 10 users also looks like the application is normal. Okay, with 10 users, generally 10 is nothing. Okay, it's very low. In performance, sometimes we go till 5,000 users, 10,000 users. Okay, so and throughput, if I say, generally we can go till for a bigger application. Okay, like very big client, it will go till some 500 TPS or 800 TPS. Okay, so that's a like some real example. Generally 800 TPS and all, the request will go. So if you calculate how many transactions per hour, you can know, right? It's so big, right? Now we tested long back one e-commerce, okay, application. So there the request per second for ordering, okay, where the order really happens, no, the payment is done and the order is placed. It was around 80 TPS, like 80 transactions per second, only in one region, okay. Yeah, like I can't call out what was the e-commerce and all, but for a region it was 80 transactions per second was their SLA, right? So 80 transactions per second. So you can, like how much ordering is happening in 1 second, 80 orders per second. In an hour, now you can calculate. right? Almost 3 lakh transactions per hour. So 3 lakh orders are being happening in 1 hour. So you understand how big that application is, right? So those also, that type of applications also you have to test. You will have to. So that's how things is. Now this 10 users are nothing. Okay, like it's like very small load what we are applying on, because this application is dummy application. We can't put lot of load. The system will break. Yeah. So any question, anyone? Any doubts? Okay, so if no more doubts, we can stop here. We can continue tomorrow. So any doubts regarding the course, anyone, like anything what you need extra, like Shashi wanted, also someone wanted more on the case study, or so anything which you want, you can always call out. Okay, so based on the time constraint and based on how the classes go, I can accommodate that somehow if possible. And is the things getting clearer, or you have some suggestion, like I should reduce my pace speed, or should I spend more time explaining something? Any feedbacks like that, you can always call out. So because there are different audience always, so we can understand, like, so that we don't spend this 20 hours and you don't get anything out of it. So I don't want it to happen. So let's keep this interactive as much as possible also, because in that way the sessions will be interesting and new problems will come out of the questions. So yeah, if no more question, we can stop for today.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, Namit, go ahead.
Yeah. Are you planning to take classes on weekends too, Saturday, Sunday?
For now, I haven't planned anything, but if others are also interested, I can think about it.
Okay.
Yeah. What about others? Anyone is interested for weekend classes like Saturday, Sunday?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Like Saturday, what about others? Like at least if I get some 5, 6, or 10 yes, maybe 7 yes, above 7, then I will plan some Saturday.
Mine is no, sir.
Oh,
Yeah,
yours is no.
same here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
No from my side.
oh, okay. I
No
thought
from my
when you
side.
asked, it might be like you are interested. Okay.
Like
Okay.
I thought if you are planning, then I have to plan my schedule on
Oh,
Saturday.
okay. Yeah, actually, it's good. Like if you take on Saturdays, because maybe I can take 4 hours continuously and finish the course little early. But yeah, again, it's based on the time, based on the plannings. I don't want to stress you all. It's a weekend, so you can enjoy your weekend. That is also there. So no issues. No, we will not take on Saturdays. Namita, no issues.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any more suggestions? Anyone? Any other?
How
Even
about
timings.
lab sessions? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now the
actually, well, the lab
actually now.
sessions have been planned, right?
Yeah, correct. So Anu, basically now it is like we are having this theory type of sessions, right? So lab won't be that much helpful now, but labs will
Okay.
start once you enter the tool,
Okay. Okay.
because every lab you will have one assignment sort of thing, so you can do it during the lab, and if you face any issue, it will be cleared there itself.
And if someone is working and if they are not able to attend lab session by that time, what will be the alternative? Is it mandatory every day to attend that, or what will be the?
Lab is not a mandatory session, because anyway you can do it later also. What all questions and things are there, it will be shared anyways to you. So
Okay.
not a mandatory. It's for your practice. Okay, like
Yeah.
you can
Okay.
practice and clear your queries if you want during that time.
But the questions will be shared among everyone, and you can practice even if you are missing out.
Correct. But I won't be there during the lab session. there will be Anita who will be handling it. So even your queries sometimes might like you will do it. So you need to have to note down the queries. So once I am in my session, you need to ask those doubts.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, then meet you all tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, Vishnu.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vishnu. Have a good day.